checking to see if my mic is working. Looks like it, and it looks like the music is dropping out good. All right. Well, hey, so let's see. I need to fix one thing here real quick because I don't need to hear the music. Yeah, there we go. Hey, how you doing? I am flying solo tonight. George was helping out for a little bit, but I don't think that she's going to be joining me this evening. So I'm flying solo, and hopefully I don't crash and burn because, you know, when I do this on my own, things tend to go crazy. I'm actually trying out a few different things. Excuse me. Completely rebuilt all my audio and trying to route things in a way that kind of allows me to do a couple of different things. I'm actually streaming to Discord tonight also. So we'll see how that goes. Now, if anybody jumps into the Discord and tries to say something to me, I've got all of that muted, so I can't hear it. But when it comes time for question and answer and stuff like that, then I will turn on the audio for Discord so I can actually hear the questions. And I might even be able to get your voice on the stream. So, introductions. Hey everyone, my name is Derek and I am a dildo smith. I am the creator of Amavidia and I make dildos every day. I'm here to do the AMA. Ask me anything. This is Ask a Dildo Smith, and we answer your questions about all things relating to dildos, dildo making, or anything else that might come up. So this was an interesting week, and it kind of led to the topic for this evening. But we finished off the week by doing a event at one of the local dungeons. And that was real interesting, so I want to talk about that a little bit. I also have at least one new model that I'm going to try to get out in the next couple of weeks. Releasing a new model for me is just painful because we need all the pictures and all the things, and so it just it drives me nuts. But the design is done. I'm looking over my shoulder here because I've got one and I'm tempted to show it off. But let's see. Yeah, we did. We got a new model ready to go. I've gotten some good examples out of it. I think it's going to be just fine for production. And yeah. Then we did. We were invited to one of the local dungeons for their annual vendor fair. And after it was all said and done, it kind of made me think about how do we get our products out there? Because this is, I think this is the second one I've done. I say the second one that we have done. Susie actually did both of the events and actually was there for the entire duration. I just showed up every once in a while to give her a break and let her go grab some lunch or dinner or whatever. But it was definitely an interesting experience. I'd been to the dungeon before, so I kind of knew what was going on around there, but I hadn't been there as a vendor before. So I wanted to kind of see how that went. And I mean, it's just such a different world. Geez, just the stories. I was there for like 2 hours and just in the vendor room, not in any of the playrooms or anything like that. And, you know, there was another vendor who was selling paddles, of course, because it's a dungeon. But one of the women she was there with her partner, and one of the women just dropped her pants so that they could test out one of the paddles. And I look up, and there's a bare-ass woman right in front of me, and her partner is swinging a paddle at her. So things like that. One of the other vendors, actually, it was funny, they bought one of my dildos, and half an hour later I look up, and he sells harnesses, and so he's got my dildo in his harness, and he's strapping it on, and I'm just like, okay, Bran Flakes, how you doing? Yeah. George is not with us tonight, so I'm flying solo. You're going to have to put up with me. I was just telling the story about going to the vendor fair at the dungeon this week, and yeah, it was just a real interesting experience. And oh, I hear George in the background. She's in the other room, and she says hi, Bran. So she sees you, even if she's not participating this evening. But it was a great experience, and I'll get into kind of the vendoring aspect of it here in a few minutes, because that was kind of the topic. But it was a lot of fun, and it's a great place to be, where you can talk about all the things and not worry about how it's going to be seen, how it's going to be perceived, and what somebody's going to think when you expound upon silicone and, you know, pigments and your process and everything else. But there were a couple of other good things that came out of it, and so maybe I'll just roll into the topic now. And I want to make a couple of notes here, because ideas are coming to me as I speak. Oh, Bran, yeah. Actually, it's interesting because everybody's there for the same thing. So it's a real interesting world in the fact that everybody is there for the same thing, and so you don't feel out of place, no matter, you know. Yeah, it's just, you're there with your crowd. So, all right. So tonight's topic was vendor fairs, vendor events, things like that. And going to this event this weekend actually kind of pushed me toward the topic. And, you know, there are some limits and issues that we have to deal with being a sexually oriented business. And specifically, you know, we're talking about zoning issues, which those vary across the country. So you kind of have to just know your own zoning issues. And the platform limits. Like if you're on Shopify, or if you're on Wix or Etsy or any of those platforms, they all have their own rules, and so you kind of have to know what they are and work within them. By the way, as I go along, if you've got any questions, drop them in the chat, and that way I can get back around to them. Also, like I said, I'm kind of testing out new sound, new audio tracks and everything, so if you like the way that the audio sounds, or if it needs to be fixed, just drop something in the chat and let me know. I did have a couple of stories I wanted to tell about, like, platform limits. One is personal and one is anecdotal from somebody else. But personally, I run all of my transactions through PayPal. It's just simple, it's easy. I have my own website, and so all of my transactions go through PayPal. And it's, as far as a platform, it's not too expensive. But it's very functional, it's very flexible. So most people have a PayPal account, makes it easy. Anyway, every month I run up against my withdrawal limit. And usually within the first week or two of the month, I get an email from PayPal saying that some portion of your funds are on hold, and they'll put a hold on them for 3, 4, 6 weeks. I can't remember how long it is. I think it's 3 weeks. And then they'll release them. And basically they say, since I'm selling a high risk item, that I have to basically play by their rules, and they're going to put a limit on what I can withdraw each month. And it's not true. It's that the funds that come in are put on hold once I reach a certain threshold, and they're put on hold for 3 weeks. So basically, it's almost like working on net 30, where I do the work, I put out the product, but I don't actually get paid for it for about 3 or 4 weeks. So, that can be a little bit of a struggle for some folks. It really only matters the first 3 or 4 weeks, because eventually you're going to develop into a pattern where, basically everything is going to be on hold for 3 weeks. And so you just learn to deal with it, because the money just keeps rolling in. It's just delayed by 3 weeks. Now, having said that, PayPal keeps telling me I can fix this by adding tracking numbers to all of my transactions. And the way I process all of my transactions and all of my shipping, it's just not even feasible for me to constantly have to go back and manually transfer and enter tracking information for every transaction. So I just suck it up and let it roll. But the other story was from somebody who was on Shopify. And this is the first time I've heard of this. So this may be a unique situation, or it might be a precursor of things to come. But they did a drop, and their funds have all been on hold. And so they have done their drop. They've done all the shipping. They've done everything. But the money isn't coming in yet because Shopify has it all on hold. And there's no specific details about how long they're going to put that money on hold. So it's an interesting place to be. I've heard of some people getting in and having problems with PayPal and having problems with shipping and chargebacks and things like that, not shipping on time, etc. And then PayPal will just put their account on hold for 6 months. But they'll actually tell you that it's on hold for X number of days or X number of weeks or months. But the information about Shopify at this point is really sketchy and really thin, so I don't know exactly what they're holding it for or how long they're holding it. Brand flakes. For me, I can't do PayPal because they need something I don't want to give them. Yeah, that can be a thing if you don't actually want to set up a PayPal account. But you don't actually have to have a PayPal account to pay for something through PayPal. You can just do it by a debit card or credit card through the I can't remember how they do it. It's basically you go in and it'll say, do you want to log in? You say no, and then it'll say, give us your credit card information, and you just run through it that way. So a PayPal account isn't actually necessary, but you can still run the transaction through PayPal. Dub Sativa, hey, how you doing? Been chatting with Dub over the week, and I think I want to go back, and I think you had some questions earlier this week that I wanted to come back and touch on tonight. So what are our alternatives? I want to kind of throw this out there as a way of just thinking about it and maybe getting some different ideas from folks of different ways to get your products out there. Scar Nightshade, hey, good to see you again. Temptation of buying one. Yeah. So I can think of a few different ways, but I'd love to hear if you have any ideas. Drop them in the chat and we'll figure it out. But, the easy way is selling through friends and family. And I think of this in terms more of local as opposed to selling on a platform or selling over the internet or anything like that. I'm talking about local in-person sales. But friends and family are a way that you can kind of get started, and a way that you can start maybe developing a little bit of a reputation in your local area. And the friends are fairly easy to deal with. Family is a little bit more fraught, maybe some landmines out there, but friends and family are a way to kind of get started and get a little bit of a reputation around town. The second one is what I've been doing, which is working with the local dungeons. Sometimes they'll have vendor fairs, or they'll have specific nights that they want vendors to come in and set up a table or what have you. But one of the things about doing things locally is the networking that comes along with it. It's interesting because as I was there, I was talking to some folks who are other vendors, and it turns out that they had connections to another dungeon that I hadn't been to yet. And so they're setting us up and getting me in touch with the folks at that one so that we can come in and do another vendor event. So that networking that you get locally can actually kind of snowball on itself. But for me, local dungeons is kind of where it's at. I was also thinking about there are swingers clubs. I don't know a whole lot about them. I don't know exactly how to get into them or whether or not they do vendor nights or anything like that. So that's another route that somebody could take. It's one that I haven't taken yet, but it's possible. The local adult toy stores also. Whenever I go into the local toy store, I'm always chatting up the person behind the counter, and comes around, oh, hey, I make dildos, and they always want to see them. And the next step for me is working with some of the local toy stores. There's basically one major chain that has all the toy stores in town. But they're a regional company as well. So if I get in with one or two of the stores locally, then we can start expanding out regionally. And then there are the regional or maybe national conventions. I would say, stick with, we're kind of expanding out from this point. We started off with the local dungeons, and now we're talking to the local toy stores that might be a little bit more regional. And now we're talking about conventions that might be regional or national. And so that's kind of third, fourth step away from me right now. I'm kind of on step 2, and that's on step 4 or 5. So that's those are my thoughts. That's where I was at when I was thinking about doing things like this. Now, George has had the idea of doing what she calls a trunk show, trunk sale. And I guess that's kind of like, you throw all of your stuff into a trunk and then you just show up someplace. And of course you've talked to whoever you need to about it, but you show up and, all of a sudden there you are, you're selling your toys. I think that's an interesting idea. And I might want to talk to some of the local shops and see if that might be viable. So let's see. I'm curious if there's anybody on. Nope. I'm alone on Discord. That's okay though. I just wanted to try it out and see if it worked. And like I said, the connections at the events, I think, are kind of the icing on the cake, so to speak, because that's what gets you to the next event. And so yeah. But if you have any ideas, I'd be curious to hear them, and we can kind of bat them around and see how they work out, what we think about them. So let's see. Oh, and Dub, since I know you're in Spain, and We are GMT -6, I think. So it's what, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. where you are? Jeez. Thanks for coming in. Hang on a second. What'd you say, George? Oh, no, I didn't. George is throwing ideas at me now. There is another event that I want to do, and it's here in town. It's called the Nude Art Show, and it's basically an art event. It's kind of all-night thing. There's art, but there's also, it's kind of a club. It's kind of a, I don't know, it's all kinds of things all wrapped up in a weekend. And, you know, it's very sex positive. And so I want to do some things to kind of put some things that are more artistic. And I have some ideas of things I want to do for events like that. So we'll see how that goes. But you might look and see if there's any kind of art events, new, like here it's called the Nude Art Show. So maybe there's something like that where you are, depending on how big a city you're in. Scar Nightshade, do you ever do sales with like a discount code? I rarely. Right now I'm experimenting with one. I do have one code that is out there, but it's very specific to how it's supposed to be used. So I can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you how to find it. But I do use them occasionally for very specific things. Usually it's in partnership with somebody else. And it's a way that I use to track, value. So that's not quite the right word, but you know, what is the reach of some kind of connection? Like if I do an episode on a podcast, or if I send Susie to do an episode on a podcast, we might give them a discount code. And that way, whenever somebody uses that discount code, I know where they came from. And it's a way for me to track back and just see the effect of what we're doing and whether or not I have a good match of my audience and their audience and my products. So I do occasionally do a discount code, but it's not really my practice. And because I do wholesale as well, that ties into it. I never want to compete with my retailers on price. So generally I will never discount my products because I don't want to cannibalize the sales from my retailers. So if I do something, generally it's going to be an add-on where you'll pay full retail, but you'll get something extra. So that way we're not competing on price. It's just something extra that I can add on that sweetens the deal for folks. 2:26 a.m. Wow. You should be going to bed soon. Although, yeah, we've talked about it before. You're a late night kind of person. Kind of like marketing tracking. Yeah, it's a way of marketing tracking so that I can track back to the source and figure out where the good connections are. Because if it's not a good connection, then if they try to, there were a couple of podcasts that Susie did, and we gave them a discount code, and we saw nothing out of it, which either means that they were optimistic about their reach, or it was just not a good fit with their listeners. So, yeah, it's a way for me to do marketing tracking. All right, so I had a question that came in through my DMs, and I'm gonna move this over here so I can see it, but I also need to be able to see this. And let's see. And I'm going to kind of generalize the question a little bit. and it might require that I be a little bit more specific about some of the words that I'm using. And I don't want to get pedantic about the whole thing. So basically the question was, this person has heard me say that because it's a platinum cured silicone, it's safe. And while that is not incorrect, it's not entirely correct, because the way I look at it is that platinum cured silicone in its basic formula is body safe. There are additives or other things that people can do, or the processing that can make it less safe. But the way I look at it is, as a category, the core product of silicone, platinum cured silicone, is safe. It is what they do to it afterward that may make it less safe. So when I say that because this is a platinum cured silicone, so it's safe, it's a generalization that I'm having to make just so that it's kind of like shorthand. And there was a little bit of a discussion back and forth about how, like some of the smooth-on products are listed as body safe or food safe, and some of them aren't. And there was kind of a question, we were talking about why that might be. And, it's very possible that all of those silicones are completely body safe. They just haven't gone through the certification process to have them certified as body safe or medical grade or food safe. Now, why wouldn't they? And my thought was that, well, there may be certain properties about that silicone that make it not useful as a body safe product. Maybe it's the tensile strength or the shear strength or the elongation factor, or there's a whole lot of different factors that go into making it and what it might, what characteristics it might have in the end. And, if something is super hard or super soft, or has a very, that likes to tear, that it doesn't have a very strong shear profile, then there's no reason in getting it certified, because it's not going to be used for those things. There's one I was thinking of. There's one, it's called Silly Glass, and it's platinum cured silicone, and it's used in special effects to simulate glass. So you can take it, and it actually crumbles up real easily. So you pour it out in a sheet, and then you crumble it up, and you've got these little pieces that look like shattered glass, tempered glass, because it makes those little squares and those little chunks. But it's completely safe, and so they use it for special effects in movies or what have you. So something like that, even though it is likely to be body safe and completely harmless because of its properties, its characteristics, it's just not a good option to get it certified. So maybe that clarifies, or maybe that doesn't. Maybe that fogs it up a little bit. But what I'm thinking is that the way my brain works, and I kind of use platinum cured silicone as a catch-all for body safe products. So hopefully that kind of clarifies that. All right. What else did I have? I think that's about it. So I'm going to open up Discord and turn the sound on over there. So if anybody jumps into the Discord and they want to chat or ask questions, they can. Funny story this week. I had my first live stream shut down by TikTok. I guess it was just a little too spicy. And it's a funny thing. It was nothing more than pouring silicone in front of a camera. And it riled some people up, I guess, because about 10 minutes into the stream, TikTok shut me down and banned me from doing live streams for, I don't know, some period of time. I did another one this week and didn't have a problem. So I guess my ban has expired. But yeah, I did one and it got shut down midstream, and then I did another one and ran the entire length. It was about 45 minutes to an hour. Ran just fine. And then after I got done doing the pours and everything, I shut down TikTok and then continued the conversation on Twitch and YouTube. So, Twitch and YouTube, I can be a lot more specific about things and not run afoul of any of the boundaries or anything. So, what else? Brand flakes, really? Yeah, it really happened. I always kind of end up finding the boundaries of the platforms, and I've had stuff taken down from Instagram. I've had stuff taken down from TikTok. I haven't had any problems on Twitter. Twitter is kind of the Wild West. You can pretty much throw up anything you want to on there, but it's the other platforms are a little bit more touchy about it. So, what else? Now, Dub, did you have any questions? Because I think we talked about a few different things this week, and I'm not sure if there'd be anything there that you'd want me to expound upon, or if you want to dive into with me. Let's see. Who is that? Okay. Oops. By the way, how is the sound? Is the music too loud? Hard for me to tell. I have been chatting with some of the other makers, and I think I've got some folks lined up to bring on the live stream again sometime. So, yeah. All right. Ooh, I guess I could show you some pictures from I can't show you pictures from the event at the dungeon, but I can show you the pictures of my table from the dungeon. Let's see, where is it? There we go. Let's see if I can do this. I need to do studio mode first, and then browser share. There we go. And transition. There we go. Turn off studio mode. But that was one of the tables, or that's one view of the tables. And this is kind of a little bit more head-on view. But the way we set it up is, the banner up front, and then examples of everything. And we actually set up QR codes for each of the models, and if you scan the QR code, it goes to show you that particular category in the store, in the web store. So there's each of the different models there, and their QR codes and a little description for each one, and then back here just a bunch of product. So yeah, actually you can see we had some paddles there as well. Yeah. Oh yeah, there was Dub Sativa. We were talking about creating real life testicles, and I have slept since that conversation, so I know I didn't answer your question in the chat because I had one idea of what you were trying to do, and that was not what you were actually trying to do. So Ecoflex gel. I don't have any experience with the Ecoflex gel. Which one is this? Ooh, 00035. That is squishy. So let me go back to your question back in the chat, or back in the DMs. Okay. I apologize for the silence and me thinking here, because I'm trying to solve the problem. And I think one of the ways you might be able to do it is if you, and this is actually something I was experimenting with this weekend, but if you did if you had your mold and you filled it with dragon skin, and you kind of just kept it rotating so that, well, let me rephrase. Fill it with dragon skin and then pour all the dragon skin out. That'll give you a skin of the dragon skin on the inside of the mold, and then keep it rotated so that you don't have any pooling. And as it starts to set up a little bit, then backfill it with the Ecoflex gel, and then top it off with a little bit of, where you're putting the silicone in, top it off with a little bit of the dragon skin. And then you have something that could be a passable testicle that is still going to be squishy, but is going to at least have that skin of the dragon skin in order to give it some structure, because that 00030 is squishy. That's one that if you set it down, it'll want to like pool. It wants to kind of melt almost. Hard on the outside and soft on the inside. Yeah, I think that if you were doing something like if you had just a little mold that you're doing testicles in, pour in some dragon skin, rub it or roll it around, pour out the excess, and keep it rolling for a little bit while the dragon skin is kind of setting up, and then add in your Ecoflex gel, and then top it off with a little bit of dragon skin. That'll give you a completely encapsulated piece. Now, getting it out of the mold could be interesting, because as squishy as that is, it may be really easy or it may be really hard. You may or may not be able to get a good handle on that, trying to get that out of the mold. Now, this weekend, what I was experimenting with was I did a translucent, what was it? It was plain silicone with a very, very translucent fairy glitter. It almost had, it was more iridescent than it was a pigment. And so I mixed up a batch of that and poured that on the inside of several molds. And then I went back and backfilled it with other colors. And on the gibless, it was really interesting because the iridescence, I used a really soft silicone. It was 0020, I think. And it may have been 0030. I can't remember right now. But it settled into all the nodules of the gibless. And then when I went back and backfilled it with a firmer silicone, it and pulled it out, each one of those little nubs was really flexible. It was like they had a little bit of squish to them. So it was really interesting. I haven't had a chance to go back and really kind of dissect it and figure out if I liked it or not. But I wanted to see if I could do something that had that kind of translucent skin with a different color of pigment behind that skin. So anyway, very much like what we were just talking about, kind of the opposite though, because this was a very soft silicone on the outside. And like you said, a hard silicone on the outside for you and something very squishy on the inside. And I'm still all alone on Discord. I just wanted to experiment with Discord to see if I could even make it work. The interesting thing is that it's flipped for me, so all the text is backwards. I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if that's my problem or if that's just the way that Discord works. So, all right. Questions, comments, feedback. What you got for me? Oh. I don't know. Did I show you this one? This is a little bit of a different spin on the Verseston. It has this really interesting organic kind of net webbing over it. And of course I had to do it in this really awful green because zombie peen, right? But it's got that it's really interesting. I haven't sent this out to my testers, so I don't know what the feedback is yet. And then this one is the newest model. Get this out of the way. And see which camera. Is it that one? That one. Okay. Very, very kind of, I don't want to call it basic, but it's very refined in the sense that we're basically going for something that has that nice curve, but it also has those ridges. I've had a few people comment that it would be great as a prostate toy for pegging or strap-on play or something like that. Mushroom wanger. Let's see. So you've got imposter syndrome. That's what it sounds like to me. What do you think? Come on, focus. A little bit different style. The shaft on this is actually a pentagon. So it's got kind of an interesting bulge around the sides, and then the ridges are on there. So again, this hasn't gone out to my testers yet, so I don't know what the feedback is. And hopefully they'll be positive. And if they are, then this will go out to the world. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was playing with kind of pastels. Where's my camera? There's my camera. That's a bad camera to work on. Nope. Bad camera. But yeah, I was kind of working on the pastels a little bit because that's something I struggle with is pastel colors. Brand flakes. I mean, I can do decent designs, but they're all humanoid. That's okay. Is it different? Is it something that is going to be interesting to people? If it's humanoid, that's fine. I mean, this is just happens to be the category that I'm going for is non-realistic, representational, but not realistic. So it's humanoid or realistic. It's not really that bad of a category to get into. Who is it? Vic Skin Vixkin they've kind of grown beyond being an indie, or an independent maker, but they, as far as I know, they're still handmade, and so yeah. But all their stuff is realistic, and realistic after humans. So they've definitely cut out a category for themselves, and you can too. Can you recommend a system for rotocasting? I've seen electric turntables for displaying products, but that would need to be something that supports rotation. The first thing that comes to mind is something like what's used for rock tumbling. It's basically there's a platform and then there's two wheels, and one of them is driven, and that would drive a bigger piece. Now you might set up, if it were me, I would 3D print something and put it on so that I could fit my mold into it, and then that would fit on the tumbler. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. I didn't know of any actual systems. I have seen there was somebody on the Discord who was posting about they had a rotary system that they were using, but if you're on the Discord, the Toy Makers Discord, do a search for rotary, and you might get some ideas there. They're all looking like human dicks, but with stuff on it. Okay. Shift away from the generic shapes. Well, then, what category do you want to go into? A cuptisserie. Yeah. The rock tumbler is kind of that. Like you were talking about the concrete mixers. The concrete mixers are very much like that. The rock tumbler is just that on a much smaller scale. So, and the barrel that would roll is separate. So, yeah, like I said, if it were me, I would 3D print some kind of a. Let's see if I can get the camera in front of me. A big old circle like this that I could insert my mold into, and then I'd take that whole thing and set it on the rock tumbler. And that way it would rotate and keep the silicone from settling. Cuptisserie. The other thing that I have seen is folks who do custom tumblers, or custom, the water bottles. Yetis, things like that. They customize those. They have a rolling system that they use for that. But I don't remember how that holds on to the cups. Hey, I mean, a rock tumbler is not that expensive, but there's always multiple ways. Cuptisserie. Yeah, go for it. That was just the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking about the question. So, what else? What else we got? Okay. Yeah. Like I said, I couldn't remember how they were held, but it was something that popped to mind. So, did my music drop out? Is it still going? It's still going. Okay. one of these days, I was talking to Susie, one of my silicone slingers, earlier tonight, and she's the one that did most of the time at the vendor fair this weekend at the dungeon, and wanted to bring her on and have her talk about the experience from her perspective, because she was there for more time than I was, and so she can definitely share some stories. And I'm still all alone on Discord. But, oh well. Anything else? Because you got about, I'm going to give you 1, maybe 2 minutes to get some questions in. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up for the evening. But in the interim, I would be remiss if I never mentioned my website where you can find all of our toys and such, which is amavidi.com or www.amavidi.com or amavidi.etsy.com if that's your thing. So, what else did I need to mention this evening? I could tell you about what's going on at the condo tonight. There is an electrical issue. Half the building does not have power. Luckily, I do, but I'm up on the 14th floor, and floors 1 through 10 don't have power. So, let me see. Kitty cam, huh? You want to see one of the cats? Let me see if I can find one. She is unhappy. Does not like being on camera. Do you have anything to say? Mm-mm. Make the noise. Make the noise. Yeah. This is Fiona. And she's done. Yeah, she's super fluffy. And then this is Kai. You have anything to say, Kai? You want to talk to the world? Come on. Ow, she poked me. Yeah, these two are actually fairly friendly. They just don't like being forced into cuddling. So, but when it comes time and it's their choice, they are all up in your face. Do. All right. Yeah, the cats get more love than I do sometimes. And with that, I am going to wrap it up. I don't know. I might leave Discord on for a little bit longer just to see if anybody pops in there. But we will do this again next week. And I don't know. What are we going to talk about next week? What'd you say, George? Tell them about what? Oh, okay. George is throwing suggestions. I'm supposed to tell you about the campfire that I made for her play. They did their first live performance from her. Let me see. how do I put, I want to make sure I get all the details in there. Last year, she created a theater company, and while they have done several events, performances, either streamed or recorded, they finally did their first live performance this weekend. And so, as always happens, I get wrangled into some kind of support of the show, and I had to make fire. Let's see, do I have... I think I have a picture of that. Might take me a second to get to it, but I made fire for one of the one acts. And browser share. Is that it? Nope, not that one. I have to switch browsers. I have too many browser windows open. Let's see. There we go. So I made flames out of acrylic. I made acrylic fire. And they used that in one of the one acts. They did very well. The night that I was there, they sold everything out. All the seats were taken, so that was good. And I'm glad they were able to finally do something live. Playing with fire. I actually am curious. I like to play with fire also. I'm curious about cupping. I want to see if I can find somebody who can teach me to do cupping. So, which is a little bit of fire play, but I'm curious about that. Mostly because of the physics. As something burns, heats, and then cools, it creates a vacuum. And so, yeah. Maybe they'll do that at the dungeon one time. And maybe I can get them to do a class on cupping. That would be interesting. Let's see, future toy designs. That could be an interesting topic. I have a few that are kind of sitting around waiting for me to come back to them. So maybe we could do that. I do need to bring Susie on and have her tell the stories of what she saw at the vendor fair. Because if she saw, if I saw what I saw when I was there, I'm sure she's got tons more stories. I need to bring on some of the other makers that I've been talking to. And I want to make sure I get them scheduled. So, yeah. So, yeah. I made fire. I feel like a caveman. Oops, that's not it. Is there anything else? I got a bunch of pictures of stuff. Is there anything else I want to show you guys? Oh yeah, I forgot. By the way, this one, I remember now why I never gave it to anybody to test out. This one actually glows in the dark. I used a glow-in-the-dark powder on this one. And, yeah, I can show you pictures of that. Where is it? There it is. The glow-in-the-dark peen. Is there... Oh, I could show you all the stuff that's getting ready to get listed next week. How about that? Let's see, make sure I don't. So, these are all product shots of stuff that is going to get listed next week. There's about 125, 150 pieces that are going to get listed next week. This one actually, the pictures don't do it as much justice as it deserves, but this white that's in here is actually has an iridescent blue behind it. So that was real pretty. And then there's the candy corn. This is another one I really liked. A little bit different. Now you can kind of see how I do it. Is the first picture I take is of the SKU number, and it also has the firmness on it, the colors that I used, and then it goes into the product shots. And I do that for each one. So, first shot and then product shots. I really like this one. So. But yeah, just the list keeps going and going and going. So, yep. Let's see, what else do we... So yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's all what's in. Sorry about that. I hit the wrong thing. So yeah, that's what's going on right now. And those should be listed next week and be ready to roll. Scar. Let me see if I can find one, because there was one of the things that you asked about on one of the other live streams this week. Scroll all the way up to the top, come back down. Did I only get one picture like that? I guess I did. Oh. So one of the things that I'm going to be including in the next series of product releases is some that have multiple pieces in the same order or same product. So this would be a Parabolica and a Metropole together in one product. And then we also have like this one, which is a Metropole, Parabolica, and Strupula all together in one. So some interesting things coming around. So, unless there's anything else, I'm going to wrap it up. Are we done? I think we're done. Kai scratched me. All right. So with that, I am out of here. We'll do this again next week. I don't know if you guys follow daylight savings time or not, but we do around here. So we're GMT -6 now. That's for the international folks. But, if you're in the United States, you can do the math and figure out what it is for where you are. But 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time. We'll do it again next Sunday. Bye. Thanks, Dub. Thanks, Scar. And Brand. Keep working on it. I think you've got some ideas. Maybe take some. Okay, designing for Blender and ZBrush. That's one area where I would feel like I didn't have a whole lot to contribute. I don't feel comfortable or confident in my abilities with Blender or ZBrush. I can futz around with it a little bit, and I'll eventually get what I want, but it'll take me a lot longer than a lot of folks. So that might be a hard one for me to do. But Bran, definitely keep working on your ideas. And eventually you'll have to just make one and see what people think, because that's when you're going to get the feedback. And until you put it out there, nobody's going to know what you can do. And with that, I'm out. Good night, everybody. Bye. What we have here is Ecoflex 0050 from Smooth On. It is 1-to-1 by weight or volume, so it'll be real easy to use. It's also body safe, so it'll be perfect for what we're making. We will also be using some mica-based pigments to color our silicone. We have a really nice silver and a really pretty red. These pigments are also body safe, so these will be the pigments we'll be using. There are also liquid pigments, which are really easy to use as well. Other supplies we'll be using today are nitrile gloves, because latex can cause cure inhibition in platinum cured silicones. We'll also be using some good quality craft sticks or tongue depressors, as well as a couple of mixing cups. We'll also be using some mold release. This is Man Ease Release 200. And we'll also be using a vacuum chamber and vacuum pump. And before we get started, we will make sure to spray our mold with mold release and set it aside to dry. As we get started, we want to check our pot life and cure time for our silicone. In this case, our pot life is 18 minutes and the cure time is 3 hours. Now we're going to measure out our silicone. In this case, I need 80 grams of part A, and I'll need 80 grams of part B. And now we mix like crazy. Make sure you get a good positive mix of your two parts. Now, since this is a 2-color pour, I'm going to separate off about half of my silicone into a new cup. And now we'll add our pigment. Roughly speaking, you'll need about 1 gram of pigment per 100 grams of silicone. However, that can be adjusted up or down depending on the color or just whatever you're trying to achieve. And right now I'm checking for clumps or other issues. All I see are bubbles without any clumps, so we're good to move on. The next step is to vacuum out any air that might be in the silicone. I was really aggressive with my mixing, so there is a lot of air in the mix. This is sped up, but what we are looking for is to see a rise and collapse of the silicone. Then we're going to continue vacuuming until no more bubbles come out of the silicone. Now that we have our completely degassed silicone, I'm going to add the silver to the red so we can get a nice fade or marbling effect between the two colors. This is where you can get really creative with how your colors combine. Small changes with positioning in the cup can have a big effect on the final product. Silicone isn't cheap, so make sure you use all of it. We have our silicone ready to go and our mold as well. Now we're going to pour straight down the middle. If you hit the sides, it's not the end of the world, but it will break up the marbling effect that I'm shooting for in this case. I like to put a little design on the base as my signature, but you can do whatever you like. If you have any extra silicone, you can always pour that off into an extra mold. I like to create an extra squishy from the excess and include that with the order. And one final tip, always keep your cups with your mold. That way you can always check to see if your piece is fully cured without actually touching the piece. Or if you need to do any troubleshooting later, you've got your samples to compare against. And I think we're ready to demold this one. But the first thing we want to check is our cups and see how they came out. The red is fully cured and peeled out very nicely. So let's check the silver. And finally, we'll double check ourselves with the squishy. Since the cups were fully cured and the squishy came out fine, I think we're ready to demold this one. First, we'll give it a squeeze and check all the way down. Next, we just want to break it loose at first by giving it a little stretch. Then we're going to work a bubble all the way around and down to the tip, just to make sure it's loose all the way down. This way we don't actually tear the tip off or have other problems. This is what we call a dough short. You can see the silver starts at the tip and goes all the way down. And the red comes in around the halfway point and completes the base. And all in all, I'm going to call this a success. The final step is to do any trimming that might need to be done. We'll just trim off any of that extra flashing around the base. You should also do a final wash and clean of any excess mold release that might be hanging around. What we have here is Ecoflex 0050 from Smooth On. It is 1-to-1 by weight or volume, so it's going to be real easy to use. It's also body safe, so it'll be perfect for what we're making. We will also be using some mica-based pigments to color our silicone. We have a really nice silver and a really pretty red. These pigments are also body safe, so these will be the pigments we'll be using. There are also liquid pigments, which are really easy to use as well. Other supplies we'll be using today are nitrile gloves, because latex can cause cure inhibition in platinum cured silicones. We'll also be using some good quality craft sticks or tongue depressors, as well as a couple of mixing cups. We'll also be using some mold release. This is Man Ease Release 200. And we'll also be using a vacuum chamber and vacuum pump. And before we get started, we will make sure to spray our mold with mold release and set it aside to dry. As we get started, we want to check our pot life and cure time for our silicone. In this case, our pot life is 18 minutes and the cure time is 3 hours. Now we're going to measure out our silicone. In this case, I need 80 grams of part A, and I'll need 80 grams of part B. And now we mix like crazy. Make sure you get a good positive mix of your two parts. Now, since this is a two-color pour, I'm going to separate off about half of my silicone into a new cup. And now we'll add our pigment. Roughly speaking, you'll need about 1 gram of pigment per 100 grams of silicone. However, that can be adjusted up or down depending on the color or just whatever you're trying to achieve. And right now I'm checking for clumps or other issues. All I see are bubbles without any clumps, so we're good to move on. The next step is to vacuum out any air that might be in the silicone. I was really aggressive with my mixing, so there is a lot of air in the mix. This is sped up, but what we are looking for is to see a rise and collapse of the silicone. Then we're going to continue vacuuming until no more bubbles come out of the silicone. Now that we have our completely degassed silicone, I'm going to add the silver to the red so we can get a nice fade or marbling effect between the two colors. This is where you can get really creative with how your colors combine. Small changes with positioning in the cup can have a big effect on the final product. Silicone isn't cheap, so make sure you use all of it. We have our silicone ready to go and our mold as well. Now we're going to pour straight down the middle. If you hit the sides, it's not the end of the world, but it will break up the marbling effect that I'm shooting for in this case. I like to put a little design on the base as my signature, but you can do whatever you like. If you have any extra silicone, you can always pour that off into an extra mold. I like to create an extra squishy from the excess and include that with the order. And one final tip, always keep your cups with your mold. That way you can always check to see if your piece is fully cured without actually touching the piece. Or if you need to do any troubleshooting later, you've got your samples to compare against. And I think we're ready to demold this one. But the first thing we want to check is our cups and see how they came out. The red is fully cured and peeled out very nicely. So let's check the silver. And finally, we'll double check ourselves with the squishy. Since the cups were fully cured and the squishy came out fine, I think we're ready to demold this one. First, we'll give it a squeeze and check all the way down. Next, we just want to break it loose at first by giving it a little stretch. Then we're going to work a bubble all the way around and down to the tip, just to make sure it's loose all the way down. This way we don't actually tear the tip off or have other problems. This is what we call a dough short. You can see the silver starts at the tip and goes all the way down. And the red comes in around the halfway point and completes the base. And all in all, I'm going to call this a success. The final step is to do any trimming that might need to be done. We'll just trim off any of that extra flashing around the base. You should also do a final wash and clean of any excess mold release that might be hanging around.